What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Prop Show in advance of Week 2 in college football here on Fantasy Points. It is Rick Kamla. It is Josh Chevalier. Josh, we are going to give the people some winners right now, man. How you doing? I'm psyched. Let's go. It's the Prop Show.
Dude, you must be feeling so good. You must be feeling yourself after going 4-1 last week on your ATS picks, man. That was unbelievable.
Appreciate you saying that, man. We had a good read on last week. We're going to try to keep it going with this week and all the weeks beyond. You know what I mean? Like, try not to get too confident and all that. Trying to be all shucks about it. But yeah, we had a good beginning. Hit both of our best bets, and I appreciate you saying that, man. So we're staying humble, grinding for the people, and going to try to continue to give them more winners. We'll talk a little ATS. I don't know, depending on how much time we've got, towards the back end of the show, look ahead to some of, Notre Dame and NC State and Alabama and Texas and Tulane and Ole Miss and some of the bigger matchups this week. We'll definitely take a look at some of that. But Josh, are you ready? Should we dive into some props, my friend?
Dude, yeah, man, I'm ready. This is going to be fun. We got like 20 or 30 up here. Let's see if we can roll through them and give people some good bets here.
I believe we will. Got these lines off of Prize Picks, okay? So want everybody to know that. And Prize Picks is good with the college football props. They have a cool situation for you over there, so check that out. And so let's get into Shedeur Sanders here, Colorado quarterback. He and Travis Hunter and Deion Sanders, obviously the talk of college football, and rightly so. Heck, it's one of the biggest stories in all of sports right now. With the NFL, with the U.S. Open going on still, Deion and Colorado have cut through the clutter of the news cycle. So Shedeur Sanders here, Josh, is at 315.5 with the passing yards at home against Nebraska. Hit me. Get us started here, man. You going up or are you going down on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to say the over on this one, and here's why. I mean, not a lot of statistical stuff here that I'm going to get into, although I could. But Deion seems fixated on getting his boy to New York for that Heisman ceremony. And I think they're just going to chuck it. And really, what running backs do they have in that backfield that's healthy right now with Alton McCaskill out? I mean, you have Dylan Edwards, 5 catches, 135 yards last week. You know, this is a team that's going to pass the ball. They go fast with Sean Lewis as their OC. And so, man, Nebraska is a good defense, right? They just held your Minnesota Golden Gophers, their quarterback, to under 200 yards passing. So I'm not saying that this isn't a challenging matchup, but this guy might throw for 50 attempts in this game.
Thank you.
50, 60. And, it's the Will Rogers effect and Mike Leach effect on Will Rogers. It's like, well, if you throw 50 attempts, you're probably going to hit 300 yards is my guess.
All right, you like the over on this one. I do as well. Mark it down, an early agreement here. Shedeur Sanders threw for 510 last week at TCU in his first ever game in major college football. Now he's back home for Nebraska. Okay, you talked about Chevalier, the QB from Minnesota, threw for 196 last week. Obviously, he's limited. He's green, doesn't have a bunch of great wide receivers. So, obviously, and you know this, Josh, it's not a comp, right, to look at Chevalier and look at Shedeur. Minnesota's a ground-based team. Colorado looks to be just a swashbuckling, old-school, like Oakland Raiders team. We're throwing deep almost every single time. Like my boy Penix and the Washington Huskies, Josh. My God, in that second quarter against Boise, it was bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. I loved it. As we all know, Sanders had 4 100-yard receivers last week, including a running back. Colorado is just super talented. Okay, and I think they're playing against a pretty mediocre Nebraska team. They don't completely suck, but they're not great. It's just a talent issue here, and a big disparity on the Nebraska side. And for me, you ride the hot hand when it's real. And Xavier Weaver is real. Jimmy Horn is real. Travis Hunter is real. Their line played well at TCU last week, and obviously Shedeur is going to be in the NFL for a long time. When he goes, we don't know. He could leave after this year, but he might want to stay 2 up in Boulder with his dad. But like you said, game script. I don't see Colorado coming out with a running game approach here. We're going to ground and pound it. I just don't see that. I see Deion pedal to the metal, all gas, no brakes. We're going to throw. Like you said, 40, 50, 60 balls coming off that hand of Shedeur. And, we're at 510 last week. We're at 315.5 this week. I mean, so he could drop big time, and we still hit the over here. So we both like Shedeur Sanders, guys, at over 315.5. It is the prop show with Cam and Josh here on Fantasy Points. Get us started here on Jeff Sims, the opposing quarterback for Nebraska, going up there to Boulder to take on the Buffs. Josh, we got 185.5 with his passing yards. You're going over or under?
Yeah, I think this is a super interesting one because our boy Jeff Sims, I like Jeff Sims personally, but he threw for 119 yards last week. Now, that's against a Minnesota defense that's pretty good. But I mean, this guy, he's not known as a passing quarterback. His weapons, I think, are pretty limited at wide receiver there at Nebraska. And I just don't know if they win through the air. I mean, I think 185.5 which is what I was seeing. I think that's a good number. I think I'm going to go under on that because we're going to hit on this prop in a minute on rushing for Jeff Sims. And I think Nebraska's got a good shot at this game, but I think if they do it, it's because Jeff Sims had, 100 plus yards on the ground and not because he did it through the air. They're going to try to play keep away against Colorado, which is what you do against high powered offenses like that. So I think that's how he gets it. So I'm going to say under here at 185 on Jeff Sims.
I like where your mind is at a lot, Josh. I am as well. Why would Jeff Sims throw for more this week at Colorado against Travis Hunter, who is literally like the reincarnation of Dion, plays both sides, awesome, shut down that side of the field cornerback? Why would he play better this week? Okay, going to Boulder is going to be madness versus going to Minnesota last week. It was just kind of a humdrum Thursday night game, right? Good home field advantage, not awesome. I think there's going to be quite the home field advantage for the Buffs. And think about this, man. Colorado limited Chandler Morris last week. I thought Chandler Morris was going to have a lot bigger game. He had 279 passing yards, threw 2 interceptions, ran for only 30. Those were all muted numbers based on my expectations going in, and I didn't think he was going to go like Vince Young ballistic, but I thought he was going to have better numbers than that. So, and Travis Hunter obviously had a lot to do with that. So we both like the under here on Jeff Sims at 185.5 passing yards. Now, let's talk about his rushing yards here, Josh, and I think we've got an attractive number here at 65.5 for Jeff Sims.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he hit 91 last week against Minnesota. I think that's all you got to say. There's going to be a ton of there's going to be a ton of plays in this game, right? And so, he's got, again, 91 numbers at 65 right now in the rushing prop. How does he not hit that? Even if they lose, how does he not hit that? And based on, I think, game script and how this is going to play out. Your boy Gabe Irvin had 7 carries for 52 yards last week, right? And I think this week he's going to come back and he looked great. They just didn't run the ball a ton. I think they run the ball a ton in this game. And I think Jeff Sims is a part of that game plan.
So, Josh, I just want to piggyback on everything you're saying with this. I agree. I would go over on Jeff Sims with the rushing yards at 65.5. There were lots of designed runs last week, kind of like the Bears do with Justin Fields, a lot of read option keepers. Frankly, the best play in the entire Nebraska offense is somehow, some way getting Jeff Sims the ball coming downhill or in space against, kind of a man-to-man situation. So it's their best play, at least based on what I saw last week against Minnesota. So I definitely think he's going to go over 65.5. Now, I'll get us started here on Michael Pratt, the Tulane quarterback who's going to be hosting here. Obviously, Jackson Dart, Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss. Should be a high-scoring game. Pratt at 265.5 with the passing yards. But to me, this number, Josh, is a stay away. He had 294 in the opener. He was under this number in 9 of 13 games last year. I don't like the passing number. I do, however, like his rushing number at 32.5. And I would recommend the over on this for the people. He had 39 rushing yards in the opener. He was over this number in 7 of 13 games last year. Mercer quarterback Carter Peavy ran for 49 yards last week on Ole Miss when they got beat 73-7 or whatever that score was. He still went over this number in terms of rushing yards. And this is a win at all costs type of shootout. So Pratt's going to try to throw. It's just going to be putting everything out there. We got to run, we got to throw, we got to do all of it. and grind and move out of the pocket a little bit and just try to keep up with that Ole Miss offense. So I like the over on his rushing yards here, Josh, at 32.5. I would stay away. I don't want to go under 265.5 because let's say we have 43 to 42, right? That he's probably going to hit the over there, and we may go that high with the point. So I'm staying away from the yards. I'm playing the over on his rushing yards for Michael Pratt. How about you?
Yeah, man, I wish we had more disagreement here, but maybe great minds think alike. We'll ultimately see after this week. But yeah, I think you're right. I think rushing yards is the safer one. And I think it's super interesting. Last week, they didn't have a running back that rushed for over 45 yards in the game. And then he threw for 294 in that game against South Alabama. I mean, Ole Miss runs a ton of plays, right? So this is going to be, there's going to be a lot of offense in this game. So I do think you probably could hit the over on the passing, but I definitely think that the safer one is just to go rushing yards. The one thing with QBs and rushing yards is that sacks do count against the rushing yards.
Good point.
In college. And so you just never know if there's like some freak play. But I think this is the Michael Pratt show. Like, he is everything in their offense this year. I think that game one showed us that, and he'll certainly have to be that in this game as well. So
let's shift over here to Jalen Milroe against your Texas Longhorns in Tuscaloosa. Big old game, obviously Saturday night. All eyes will be on this one. I give you Jalen Milroe, 210.5 passing yards. Also Milroe, 52.5 rushing yards. Where are you at with those numbers, Josh?
Yeah, so I'm going to stay away from the passing yards just because I don't know, right? I don't trust Jalen Milroe as a passer. I mean, what happened last week? I was like, I don't care. It's Middle Tennessee. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to hit the over, to be honest. I think Texas is going to shut him down. I think the game plan is going to be, let's try to pound the ball against Texas, running down their throats, because that's where the strength is for Alabama. I think Milroe is going to be a huge part of that with the RPO game. And that, therefore, we're going to sacrifice the passing numbers unless somehow Texas is up and winning in the game and he has to pass. But I don't see that happening in this game. I think it's going to be ball control. Let's go back to 2009 Bama, 2010 Bama that was trying to win national championships on the ground.
So are you under 210.5 or just staying away from that passing number?
I'm going to say I'm going to stay away because I could see it. I think he has some weapons, but yeah, I do think ultimately it will be under, but I would stay away ultimately.
How about 52.5 rushing yards on Milroe?
I'm going over on that. I think he definitely hits that for sure.
We agree once again, folks. It is Rick Kamla, Josh Chevalier on Fantasy Points, the prop show, getting you ready for week 2 of the college football season. And so, look, Milroe, we haven't seen enough, Josh. Okay. And there's an eye test thing. There's also a data point thing, right? We have one data point for Jalen Milroe. That's not enough for me to go over 210.5 here. He had a $194 last week. It's a big time step up in defensive competition from Middle Tennessee to Texas. And I believe, the pressure from the Texas defense is going to lead to some runs and some leak outs and some scrambles. He did whatever he wanted to against Middle Tennessee, right? Set the record for Alabama, 3 TD passes, 2 TD runs by a QB. Never happened before for that program. Just did whatever he wanted. I mean, it was easy. It was Middle Tennessee, right? That ain't going to happen this week. I think there's going to be adversity. There may be a mistake, right? And there's just going to be scramble improv plays. So I would stay away. I'm not recommending the under here because, like you said, he's talented. He's got weapons. A big-time game. So we may have it's just to stay away from me. The rushing yards is an over for me. And I like the fact, Josh, that he did not go over this number last week. He had 48 yards on the ground last week. We're at 52.5. He's a freak athlete. He's a competitor, and he's going to max out with his arm and his legs. And he almost hit the over last week in a crazy home blowout against Middle Tennessee. No, he is going to be pushed to the test here. He'll be running and trying to get every single yard here against Texas. So we like the over on his rushing yards, folks, 52.5, and we're staying away from the passing number at 210.5. Let's move to the running back position here on the prop show. Rick Kamla and Josh Chevalier for Fantasy Points. Devin Neal, get us started here. Josh, 74.5 for Devin Neal. Kansas will host Illinois in a like pretty good Power 5 game. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. That's tomorrow night, Friday night. So 74.5 for Devin Neal. What you got?
Yeah, this is pretty simple for me, and maybe it's too simple, and I haven't thought about this enough. But I think this is a definite smash on the over. Couple reasons. Jaquez Stewart from Toledo last week, he had 82 yards rushing, and Toledo is not nearly the doesn't have nearly the offensive firepower, particularly on the run game. Lance Leopold, the head coach for Kansas, is an absolute genius when it comes to the run game and run game concepts. I also think Jalen Daniels is starting tomorrow. That's been confirmed. And I think with him starting, he's got the back tightness issue. He's not going to be running around. So he's probably either going to be throwing the ball or he's going to be handing off to Devin Neal. So even those RPO stuff that they've liked to do with Jalen Daniels in the past, like it's probably handing it off more than he is running the ball because not to mess up that back. So for me, I think going into the game, I mean, again, Toledo, they had some success against Illinois last week. And then I think just where Jalen Daniels is at in his recovery from the back injury, I think that leads to Devin Neal dominating on the ground.
I love everything you're saying right there. I'm over on 74.5 as well. Last week, 94 yards for Neal, 7.2 per carry. That was against Missouri State. And so, I mean, you know, it is what it is, but 7.2 per carry, 13 rushes. And this one obviously is going to be a competitive game. This is not going to be a rollover, you know, against a downtrodden team or against an FCS team. KU last week ran for 245 yards and 4 touchdowns. Okay. So they really got it done. And obviously, I mean, we've got, you know, about 150 yards from other backs. But you know, Neal in this one is going to be the primary guy. He's the clear bell cow for the Jayhawks. The Illinois defense is strong, but volume is going to get Devin Neal there. He is not in some kind of timeshare, some kind of split backfield. This is his backfield. Being in Lawrence will help us get there. Being talented, which Devin Neal is, will help us get there. We both like the over, guys, on 74.5 rushing yards for Devin Neal, the Kansas running back. Now, TreVeyon Henderson. Where are we going with this, bro? Okay, last week, Josh, 12 carries, 47 yards, no touchdowns at Indiana. That has to be a smash spot for TreVeyon Henderson, and it wasn't, okay? To me, this feels like a sucker bet. 81.5 yards for TreVeyon Henderson at home against Youngstown State. It feels like a sucker bet to me. I'm off this one. I don't want to go over. I don't want to go under. The Ohio State thing is so in flux and so weird to me. With Kyle McCord looked trashy last week. I mean, he did not activate. He activated his tight end Stover. He did not activate any of the wide receivers. Okay, so I got to see more from Ohio State here. But I wanted to bring it up. He's a big name. It should be a smash spot, right, for a big time back at home against a lousy team. You should run. But I don't trust it, Josh. I'm staying away. Are you over or under TreVeyon at 81.5 rushing yards?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big risk here is that at any point, like this guy can break a long run. Like as long as he still has his speed, he can break a long run. So that's the risk. But I think it's a pretty clear under on this. I mean, at this point, like we have enough data points that they're gonna rotate running backs, and they're probably gonna score enough points here pretty quickly that like he's gonna have the first half to do this, and that's it. And so I think it's an under, but I wouldn't blame you for staying away from it either. But it's one of those two for me, for him, because yeah, I think it's official that we need to start worrying about the Ohio State offense in general, unless you know, Kyle McCord figures it out like quickly. Cause I don't know, man, I'm scared.
I've been kind of hot taking this on Mad Dog and Mad Dog Sports Radio. Like how long will Deion Sanders be at Colorado, right? Like if Shedeur leaves for the pros after this season, does Deion want to stay for another year, or would he then be upwardly mobile? And will Ohio State whack Ryan Day, okay, after losing to Michigan again, and hire Deion? I've just been throwing it out there, just floating it out there, Josh. Just floating it out there for the people.
Love it.
Who knows? I mean, it's kind of pie in the sky stuff right now, but maybe, just Maybe. I think Ryan Day. I think this thing is going like this. It's trending downward right now. Definitely not trending upward. All right. Hit me with Caleb Johnson here, Josh. 65.5 rushing yards for the Iowa running back at Iowa State. Big time rivalry, obviously. Where are you at here? You going over or under 65.5 for Caleb Johnson?
Yeah, man. I'm going under, and here's why. I mean, last week he had a prime smash spot going against Utah State, who was terrible against the run last year. Now, I don't know, like maybe all of a sudden they just became an elite Mountain West Conference defensive line. But man, he had 19 carries, I think, for like 69 yards or
63. Yeah.
63.
Uh-huh.
Like in Iowa State, like they're always well coached on defense, right? Like I'm not touching. I would go under on this for sure. I do think he's going to get a lot of carries. So I think I said for sure. I would actually probably stay away from this because I think it'll be close enough. But I think it's close enough or it's under because I don't see it. I don't think he's going to be able to get there, to be honest.
Ooh, we have our first disagreement here. I like this. Our first debate, Caleb Johnson. I'm going over on this number, 65.5. So last week you mentioned 19 carries, right? The next highest carries was LaShawn Williams at 6. So this, and Josh, obviously you know all of this. This is not a split backfield, and so I think the volume is going to be there for Caleb, and it may be dirty, right? Because like you said, Iowa State, especially at home, especially in a rivalry game, they're going to gear up and play some grimy defense. But I think by volume, we're going to get there, even if it's like 3 yards a carry. And we don't have to get to 90. We got to get to 65.5. The Iowa State defense gave up 72 yards to a kid named Edwards last week for Northern Iowa. Nobody knows who that guy is. He hit 72 against this Iowa State defense. So I like the bell cow of Iowa, always a run-heavy team, to go over right here. And, Iowa State just is not very good this year, like overall. I'm not – are you geeked about Iowa State in any way, shape, or form, or do you think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12?
I think that you could easily be one of the worst teams. And when you start off with gambling issues at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, man. Good point.
Yeah, we'll see.
Good point, man. Let's go back to the Alabama and Texas game here as we're breaking down the running backs on the prop show. Rick Kamla and Josh Chevalier for Fantasy Points, getting you ready to make some winning bets on college football this week. Jace McClellan, running back for Alabama, 71.5 rushing yards at home here against Texas. Where are you at with this one, Josh?
Yeah, I said that the winning recipe for Alabama is that they're going to try to smash it down Texas's throat. I think Texas knows that. And I think Texas is going to try to make Jalen Milroe throw the ball. And they rotate running backs quite a bit there, even in that first game. Good point. There was quite a bit of distribution. So, Jace McClellan, he did have an 81-yard run against UT last year. That was really the difference in that game. But I don't think he's going to, strike gold twice. And I'm going to hit the under on this one. I think people are betting the under. I think it was at 71.5. I think I last saw it at 67.5.
Oh, wow.
Under that now, but it's going down. So I think people are expecting the under. I'm going to go with the crowd and not go against the grain on this one. I'm going to go under.
I will as well. I like the under on this one. So last week against Middle Tennessee, McClellan had 39 yards, right? You mentioned, you look at the box score, there were a ton of dudes getting 7 carries, 5 carries, 3 carries, right? They were running Middle Tennessee. You empty the bench kind of thing. Roydell Williams is going to be a buzzkill for Jace McClellan for, fantasy managers. And, if you want something like Roydell Williams is going to be very involved. He had 7 totes for 36 yards last week. The Texas defense against the run is good. Maybe really good, okay? Last week against Rice, it's Rice and you're at home, but they allowed 27 rushing yards on 25 attempts, 1 yard a carry, okay?
Yeah.
Give me a break, right? So, even last year with Gibbs and McClellan, they had a split backfield, right? And so I like the under here. I really do. Whether it's 71.5, whether it's 67.5, we agree. Under on Jace McClellan of Alabama. One more running back for the people here, Josh. Damian Martinez of Oregon State. Big number, 105.5 at home against UC Davis. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm going over on this. He's 7 straight regular season games at 100 yards at this point.
Nice.
That's just what he does. right? Martinez might not get in the end zone because of DJU, but he's going to get his carries and he's going to get the yards. And so I think the rushing yards prop is actually a really good one to go with Martinez. It's a safer one to go with. The only time he hasn't hit 100 yards in the last, whatever, 8 games is when against Florida when he got hurt in the first quarter in the bowl game. But he was well on his way. So this guy, man, he sees the holes well. This is a UC Davis team that they should be able to pretty easily manhandle. He'll get 100 yards by halftime, and then he'll sit out. In fact, I think he only has under 105 yards once in that 7-game stretch. He had 103 yards. So this feels pretty safe to me, to be honest, unless they just sit him after the first quarter, which is possible. But
unlikely, and especially Oregon State, right? They're still looking for attention. They're still looking to, promote their guys, right? It's not like Bama or Michigan where they're like, let's just get through this slappy game, right, and get on to the next.
Yep.
No, you're Oregon State. I mean, you're ambitious here, so I think they're going to run them out there. Last week, I agree with you, by the way, over 105.5 for Damian Martinez, 18 for 145 last week at San Jose State, and obviously that was a blowout, and he still comfortably went over this. Clearly the bell cow of the Ducks. Pardon me, not the Ducks, the Beavers. Sorry. But the second running back, Deshaun Fenwick, had 8 carries for 33 yards, 18 for Damian Martinez. There's no blur here. This is Martinez's backfield. He's going to get 15-plus carries. That's going to be enough to hit the over. UC Davis allowed 142 rushing yards to Texas A&M Commerce last week, okay? This is Damian Martinez in a top 25 team. Take the over on 105.5. All right, let's go to the wide receivers here, Josh. It is Cam and Josh with the prop show on fantasy points. Let's go to – I'm going to give you a 3-pack here, okay? And you go first on the opinion. Travis Hunter, wide receiver for Colorado, 73.5 yards. How dare you, Las Vegas? Or Prize Picks. Jimmy Horn Jr., 68.5 yards. And Xavier Weaver, 66.5 receiving yards. 73.5 for Hunter, 68.5 for Horn, 66.5 for Xavier Weaver. Where are you at, Josh?
Yeah, so I really like my logic on this one. I'm going over on the first two. So Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn. I'm going under on Xavier Weaver. And here's why. Minnesota last week, Daniel Jackson and Corey Crooms. They had, let's see. I think each of them had around 70 yards receiving in that game. And they both play. Daniel Jackson did a little bit of slot. He did a little bit of outside. So he did a mixture. And then Corey Crooms was primarily in the slot for that game. And they went like 60. Let's see. Daniel Jackson had 68 yards. Corey Crooms had 63 yards in that one. This isn't a crazy offense. The other wide receiver, Elijah Spencer, who's the outside receiver, he had 9 yards receiving. So Xavier Weaver plays outside. Travis Hunter's a little bit of inside and outside, and then Jimmy Horn is inside. And all those guys eclipsed 100 yards last week. But I think it's pretty easy to say Travis Hunter, if they're trying to get Shedeur Sanders to New York, they're also trying to get Hunter there with them. And I think they're going to force feed him the ball. I mean, 11 catches last week for 100-plus yards. And then Jimmy Horn, like he's just running the slot. We saw with Daniel Jackson again and Corey Crooms did last week in the slot, 9 catches and 7 catches. Jimmy Horn runs a 10.6 100-meter. He is blazing fast. And so I think he'll easily get this prop, whether it's through short passes or long ones, either way. So I like those guys as over.
So we are pretty much on the same page here. I have a recommendation for the people. I definitely agree with you that Hunter over 73.5 is a smash. Horn over 68.5 is a smash. Xavier Weaver at 66.5. Last week he had 6 for 118. Obviously way over this number. But Hunter and Horn got way more target share. And Xavier was like a big play guy, right? And really, frankly, the third fiddle in that arrangement. Okay. I like his over this week, Josh, but I totally understand your thinking with that it's more of a Hunter and Horn thing. And then that 3 guy is Xavier Weaver. Here's my recommendation for the people. Play the over on all 3 of these guys because you're not going to lose money. At least 2 of these guys are going to go over. Maybe all 3 of them are going to go over. Think about this about game script. And we talked about this with Shedeur Sanders. We both like him over 315.5. And we think there's going to be a high volume of passing, 40, 50, maybe 60 balls, depending on how competitive Nebraska is, right? So, I mean, obviously with that kind of volume, it's going to be spread around and like everybody's going to eat. So I would recommend playing the over on all 3 of these guys. And you're going to make money on that, I think. We don't make guarantees around here, but you could hit all 3. Maybe a parlay for the people as well. Like these guys all went over 100 last week. Try to ride that hot hand. We don't have to get over 100 this week. We got to get to 74 with Hunter, 69 with Horn, and 67 with Weaver. I played the over on all 3. Talk to me about your guy, Xavier Worthy, the top wide receiver for the Texas Longhorns. Your guys, hook 'em horns, 72.5 receiving yards at Alabama. Where are you at with this one, Josh?
Man, I will say this last week. I'm at an over on this, and here's why. I think it was pretty evident last week that they want to force feed Xavier Worthy targets. And what they did this year versus last year they did a lot of over the top. I think they might have led the nation in like deep shots between Worthy Ewers connection with the over 40. They did a lot of underneath stuff and let Xavier Worthy pick up yards after the catch. And so, I mean, all it takes is one for that guy to be able to take it to the house. And so I think they're going to try to feature him in this game and do it on shorter routes and let him kind of catch 8-9 balls and get there for 73.5, I think is the number, 72.5.
That's correct.
So I think he gets there for sure in this game.
Understood. Great recommendation by Josh. I'm staying away on this one for a bunch of reasons. I'm not going under. I'm not going to. It's just I don't want my money on the line with this one. I bet your money on this, Josh. But he's probably going to go over. But I have a trust issue with Quinn Ewers, the quarterback of Texas. I have a trust issue with him. I need to see him go to Alabama. This is not just a game. This is at Alabama and the Sabinator, all right? I need to see him go there and get busy. Now, Worthy last week had 90. Last year against Bama, he had 97. Pardon me. We've got over trends here, okay? Last year, he averaged 58 yards per game receiving. Okay, obviously, that's well under this number. We do have, and Josh, I know you know this, Malachi Moore and Jalen Key, 2 starting defensive backs for Alabama, are going to be game time decisions. And we don't know. I mean, they're college players. So they probably aren't going to play. It seems like when dudes are hurt like this, they always, bubble wrap them and play the long game with them. But who knows, man? This is a go for it game for both sides. I can't do it, man. I can't do it. It's a Quinn Ewers thing. Literally, if I've seen more of Quinn Ewers, because I wasn't impressed last year, completed 58% of his passes, not a big yard total, very ground heavy with Rashawn Johnson, of course, Bijan Robinson, but nah, I got to see it from Quinn Ewers. I can't go there.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a Worthy thing. It's a Quinn Ewers thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and he can't hit the deep shot. And so if what they do against him is they just play a zone and they just keep everything underneath, or play quarters on him, like, it's going to be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if Quinn Ewers gets out of this game as the starter. Or
wow. Whoa. I mean, take us into that. Or, is he, locally, right, with the sports talk radio and the media, like, is he on some kind of hot seat right now? I think he's been overrated throughout the offseason, Josh. I'll tell you that. Like, a lot of people have been hyping him up. He's still pretty high on, Heisman boards for odds and stuff like that. And I'm like, there's no friggin' way, man. Like, Jordan Travis, Sam Hartman, these guys are way better Heisman candidates than Quinn Ewers.
Yeah. There's not a ton of talk about that right now, but here's the reality is, man, this reminds me of DJU last year a little bit, and Dabo Swinney kind of defending him.
Good point.
But it seems like there's something mental with Quinn Ewers throwing the deep ball. Like, he threw a couple last game, and it was just bad. I mean, he had Adonai Mitchell open by 5 yards and underthrows him at the 5-yard line, and it's like he can make that throw, but I think something mental is going on with Quinn, and I don't think he can hit the deep shot, and I think Alabama knows that. So it'd be interesting if he's not effective. Then do they move to Malik Murphy pretty quick and just see what he's got? And if he
Interesting.
does well, then that might be it for Quinn.
Wow. Wow. I honestly, well, let me get through this game, Josh. I was going to bang on the young. Let me get this data point, and I'll if I'm ready to just pull the plug on Quinn Ewers. I mean, again, I'm not impressed. I think he's been overrated, but I mean, this is at Bama. If he goes out and throws for 290 and 3 and they win, okay, then it completely changes the narrative on Quinn Ewers for me. Jermaine Burton in this game, Alabama and Texas, 51.5 for Alabama's Jermaine Burton. I'm going to stay away on this one, Josh. Last week against Middle Tennessee, he had 62, which is over this number, but he was not the wide receiver one last week. That was Isaiah Bond with 5 for 76. Last year, he averaged 52 yards a game. Okay, pretty much right on this number. But going back to the Milroe conversation, I need to see more of Milroe as a passer against stiff competition. I don't fully trust also that Burton is the go-to guy. It seems like, they still have Ja'Cory Brooks. It seems, and they still have Malik Benson, who a lot of people kind of hyped in the offseason. He had one grab last week. Like maybe he has a pop game as they kind of spin the bottle here with all those talented wide receivers. I'm not playing under because it's a low number here. I'm just staying away. I need to see more from Milroe the passer to go here with an over on a receiving yard prop. Where are you at with Jermaine Burton?
Well, kind of how you don't trust Quinn, I don't trust Jermaine Burton. And I mean, he's just been too up and down in his career. He's too volatile of a player for me to depend on. 51.5 is a nice number. So a couple of fun stats here. Isaiah Bond had 22 passing snaps last game. Jermaine Burton had 20. The next closest wide receiver is 9.
Wow.
So they're rotating that third out, but Jermaine Burton and Isaiah Bond are staying on the field. And so that gives me a little bit of hope with Jermaine Burton that maybe they see something in him. But, Jalen Milroe, not sure what he is as a passer. And Jermaine Burton, I'm not sure. He's been too much of a ghost for me in my college fantasy football career for me to trust him in any kind of prop at this point.
I like it. So we're staying away on Jermaine Burton here. Isaiah Williams tomorrow night, Josh, with Illinois will be at KU in Lawrence. And it's 57.5 here. Where are you at with Isaiah Williams? The I think wide receiver one of Illinois. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, it was really interesting. They distributed the ball quite a bit last game. And, I think ultimately with Isaiah Williams, I'm a stay away. I mean, I think 57.5 is a reasonable number against Kansas, but that seems to be about his average that I've seen. And he does it if he gets 5 or 6 catches, then I think he'll do it. But it's a lot of underneath stuff and stuff that I just don't want to depend on. So I'm just going to stay away from Isaiah Williams as a prop.
Understood. I'm going to hit the over on this one, Josh. KU allowed 260 passing yards per game last year. They return 80% of the production from defense. So, when that's the case, I think that number matters, right? If they were returning 3 starters on defense, then okay, it's a different orchestration. Maybe it's worse, maybe it's better. But with most of the production, again, there's no guarantee, but I just feel better about that number holding up. And it's a big number, very promising number for Isaiah Williams. The Kansas defense is returning 3 of their 4 starting DBs. Last week against Toledo, Isaiah had 51 yards, and it was a close game, so that's not really makes you feel good about it. But again, I like the fact that he went under, and the boomerang and the what goes around comes around, and the ebbs and the flows. He's probably going to be trending towards and over here just because of the flow of that. But going under last week, makes me feel better about it. Last year, he was the clear number 1 wide receiver, caught 82 balls. The next closest had 37. As you said, though, it was very even with the top 3 wide receivers for Illinois in last week's game. So I don't love it. I wouldn't smash it, but I would go over on Isaiah Williams here at 57.5. And really, it's about the matchup. I think Kansas City has a leaky pass defense. And so I'd take the over on Isaiah Williams here at 57.5. It is the prop show on Fantasy Points, getting you ready for week 2 in college football. Rick Kamla and Josh Chevalier. Jamal Banks of Wake Forest, 72.5 receiving yards at home against Vandy, which is a very, very good matchup. Josh, are you over or under or stay away with Jamal Banks?
Yeah, this to me is one of the easiest smashes on the over on this slate. I think he had 100 yards last week. He's the wide receiver one there for Wake Forest. Week 1 or week 0, I guess, against Hawaii, Vanderbilt gave up 100 plus yards, I think 127 to be exact, to Stephen McBride, who's an outside wide receiver for Hawaii. McBride in week 2 against Stanford came back and hit, I think it was under 40 yards because I lost that prop last week. So I remember what that was like, what that
Buzz
number was.
Killingtons.
So, I don't know if Stephen McBride is like this legit talent or if the Vanderbilt's just got like if they're susceptible to outside wide receiver. So Jamal Banks for me, I mean, the wide receiver one in that offense, the outside wide receiver one, like is just unbelievable every year, whether it's A.T. Perry, Sage Surratt from the past. I mean, every year they have somebody who just smokes it, and that's Jamal Banks this year. I think it's pretty easy for him to go over in what should be a shootout of a game, because I don't think on the other side, I don't think Wake Forest is stopping Vanderbilt necessarily either. So I think there'll be plenty of plays, plenty of opportunities for Banks in this game.
Should be a fun game in the Brain Bowl here with Wake and Vandy. I personally, back in the day, not smart enough to get into these schools, but last week, Jamal Banks, first game as the wide receiver one, right, taking over for A.T. Perry, spiked for 6 and 108 and a touchdown. Top returning wide receiver, Mitch Griffiths can play. A lot of us saw it. I know you saw it, Josh, last year in a brief sample size, right? That first game when Hartman was out, played very, very well. He had over 300 yards passing last week. Vanderbilt this year has allowed 247 passing yards per game, a favorable number for us. Last year, they gave up 290 passing yards per game. Whoa, okay. And so we've got a bad defense. Wake is at home. He's the number one. He's comfortable with Griffiths. I do believe this is a smash spot. I would actually up the units on this one. You know what I'm saying, Josh? And go a little harder on this one because I think Banks at 72.5. Guys, this number is going to creep up a lot as the season goes along. He's talented. He's the one in Wake, and 72.5 can't contain him. Now, on the other side, you have a returning wide receiver one for Vanderbilt in Will Shepherd, 65.5. I'm going over here, Josh. He's the clear-cut number one wide receiver for Vandy. Last year he was. This year in 2 games, 12 balls, 130 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 in each game. Vandy QB A.J. Swan's been pretty good so far. And in last year, Wake allowed 269 passing yards per game. So I think it's a good matchup. I like the volume. I like his role. You mentioned game script. It should be a high-scoring game. Are you going over with me on Will Shepherd at 65.5?
Yeah, I think 65.5 is his floor, right? If you hit 130 in 2 games and then 65. So I see no problem in him being able to get there in this game. Between him and Jaden McGowan, they are the passing game for Vanderbilt. So this should be pretty easy for him to be able to hit.
Talk to me about the Ohio State wide receivers as we go back to the great mystery in college football right now. The Ohio State Buckeyes. Pardon me, Josh. Pardon me. The super overrated Ohio State Buckeyes. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is at 78.5 yards at home against Youngstown State. Emeka Egbuka is at 67.5, obviously at home against Youngstown State. Where are you at? Are you rolling the dice here on McCord, getting these dudes the rock to the point where we can go over right here? You going under where you at, Josh?
Man, I'm staying away with both of these. I'm staying away from Ohio State until I see more and I have more data points, as you were talking about earlier. But if there's one I'm going to take, I think it's going to be Emeka in this one ultimately, because I think just in these type of matchups, the slot receiver will have more of an opportunity to take a ball to the house in a game that should be a blowout pretty quickly. Whereas, of course, Marvin Harrison can do that. He's the best wide receiver in college football. But I just think Egbuka is a little bit safer for me. But ultimately, I'm just staying away until we figure out what's going on there.
I am as well, my friend. I got to see more of Kyle McCord. I don't really want to see more of Kyle McCord, but it's our jobs and as college football fans. All right, I'll give you a 2-pack here. Colby Young, 71.5 yards. He's the the maybe number one wide receiver for Miami, hosting Texas A&M, high-profile game, and Evan Stewart, the Texas A&M top receiver at 69.5. Colby Young, 71.5. Evan Stewart, 69.5. Where are you at with these, Josh?
Yeah, I'm under on Colby Young. I mean, he had 72 last game. I mean, that was awesome that he did that. I think Texas A&M is going. I think what Miami's going to try to do is they're going to try to smash the ball down A&M's throat, and then I think they're going to try to go over the top. And I don't think that's Colby Young's game necessarily. I don't think he matches up. I don't think this is a great game for him. I think it's the quicker guys, the smaller guys, the Tyler Harrells of Miami that are going to have an opportunity to feast in this game, but not Colby Young. On the other side, I think that A&M is absolutely going to try to go after Miami's inexperienced corners and try to like beat them through the air. I mean, that's what they did last week. They were very successful at it. I think that's the question mark. The strength for A&M is their wide receivers on offense. The weakness for Miami is their cornerbacks on defense. And who will win? I think Evan Stewart definitely hits the over on this one. If not, then A&M gets blown out in this game, and I don't see that happening.
Me and Josh, very similar read on both of these. I'm under on Colby Young at 71.5. And, Restrepo and George were almost as involved as Colby Young last week. Seems like an equal opportunity passing game here for Miami without a solidified number one. Texas A&M, their defense is badass. It is every year. They gave up 131 through the air to New Mexico. They gave up 156 per game last year through the air, okay? They're a stingy defense. Now, Evan Stewart, I'm with you. I'm over on this one as well. He was the wide receiver 1 last year for the Aggies. He is once again this year. Huge opener against New Mexico, 8 for 115 and 2. Connor Wegman is comfortable with him and threw the ball to him a lot. And Miami last week gave up to the Miami of Ohio number 1 receiver, a guy by the name of LeVar Dane. It sounds like a dish at a sushi place, all right? But LeVar Dane, 8 for 80 against those cornerbacks you were talking about. So, yeah, Evan Stewart at 69.5. It's actually kind of that's a really low number. It's a really low number, man. So I would again, I'd put some additional units on that one. I do like Stewart, very, very talented player too. So, getting along here, Josh, on the prop show on Fantasy Points. We're Kamla, Josh Chevalier. I will set you up here. Nebraska at Colorado. Colorado -3. Who you got, bro?
Woo! I think this is a tough one. I'm going to go Colorado, though, in here. I think that they're going to be able to get this even at -3. I just think that offense is going to be really tough to beat. I think Nebraska and Matt Rule always have a good defense, but I mean, I think ultimately that's a lot of firepower coming at you, a lot of speed coming at you, and a lot of athleticism on that offense. And I think that they're going to be able to. I think they're going to beat Nebraska, and I think they're going to be able to cover the spread.
This is one of my best bets. I'd risk 2 units to win 1 here on Colorado -3. I don't want to, get all pontificated and all that kind of stuff, but I watched the entire Minnesota-Nebraska game. I watched the entire Colorado-TCU game, and Colorado is quite a bit better than Nebraska talent-wise, speed-wise, athleticism-wise, and I think it's going to really show. Texas at Alabama, Josh, your Longhorns at Tuscaloosa here. 7.5 is the line here for Alabama. It's gone from 7 to 7.5, maybe back down to 7 before kick, but we got a 7 or 7.5 point spread here, Josh. You got Bama or you got Texas?
Yeah, I think Texas is going to cover that spread for sure. I don't know if they win the game, but even last year when Alabama was quite a bit more talented than, in my opinion, than Texas, they still only beat them by 1, and I was on the road. But they beat them on a last-second field goal. So I do think that this game is going to be close enough. I think these staffs are familiar enough with each other that they're going to know some weaknesses and be able to exploit them. But I don't think they beat Bama, but I do think they cover.
Interesting. I am going to take Bama and lay the points here. I think the coach is better. Saban versus Sark, quarterback. Look, I haven't developed a big time trust for Jalen Milroe, but what I saw last week, won the quarterback competition, came out and played very well, record-setting performance. It was very encouraging, right? I was not encouraged by Quinn Ewers' game last week. He directed one touchdown drive in the first half at home against Rice. Again, the lack of trust with Ewers is way stronger. There's more of an unknown with Jalen Milroe, like a positive upside unknown with him for me than there is with Ewers. And the venue, right? I mean, it's at Alabama, very, very tough place to play. And so I will, I would not, go crazy on this one. I'm 1.5 units to win, 1.5 units here to win 1 unit on Alabama. I would step out a little bit. I do like them in this one. And then one more, Josh, and we'll get out of here and let the people make all these bets. To me, a very, very interesting game is Notre Dame at North Carolina State. 7.5 is the number here, with Notre Dame, of course, laying the points after mauling their first two opponents by a combined score of 98-6. But this is a step up. It's an ACC opponent. They're going to be fired up at home. Where are you at? You got Notre Dame or you got NC State?
Yeah, I got Notre Dame in the points, man. I mean, I think Sam Hartman has made a big difference on this team, on Notre Dame. But probably more importantly, to be honest, is I'm scared for NC State. I think the way they won that game, well, they struggled quite a bit against Connecticut, and Brendan Armstrong had to rush the ball quite a bit because they just don't have any weapons, unfortunately, in their receiving core, and they don't have a great running game either. And so you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to do that against Notre Dame. He's not going to go run all over Notre Dame. So I think they shut down NC State. I don't know how NC State scores points in this one. And Notre Dame has a lot of options to score points between Sam Hartman and that run game that's been phenomenal through 2 games.
Audric Estime has been very, very good. They've got other dudes as well. I like Notre Dame as well. It sounds like you're a little bit more confident than I am, just because of we're going from 2 just maulings of these bad teams, right? And now, we go to NC State. So there's a part of me that I'm walking into this. I'm not running into this, but I'm walking into this with a fistful of cash to put at the window and put it on Notre Dame. Just one more stat for the people here in terms of how good the Irish's defense is, and obviously the level of competition needs to be considered. But they've given up 217 rushing yards on 83 carries over the first 2 games. That's 2.6 per rush. NC State wants to run the rock. They ain't going to be able to run the rock against Notre Dame. That's going to put all the pressure on Brennan to get it done with his arm. I don't see that happening. I didn't see a very fruitful passing game last week up at UConn, so I definitely don't anticipate some kind of passing game breakout from Armstrong and the Wolfpack at home against Notre Dame. Josh, you the man. We have given the people, 50 bets right here, man. Hopefully everybody can go out there and make some money. Any messages you want to tell the people before we get out of here on the Prop Show?
No, man, this has been great. I'm loving doing this, and to be able to hang out with you on this show and then be able to talk ball, and hopefully we're making people some money.
It's good stuff, man. Josh, appreciate you. So for Josh, for Tom Tipple, who's producing this, and for everybody watching here, we love you all. We are Fantasy Points. We are the Prop Show. Good luck with your wagers here in week 2. We will certainly be back with you next Thursday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, with more of the Prop Show right here on Fantasy Points.